I'll hit record. And firstly, I'll say thank you to everyone that has turned up. Uh, we might be an intimate group, but looking at the faces here, these are all people that I've absolutely adored in the past as well. So I really appreciate the fact that you've taken your evening or your morning, wherever you are in the world, to spend the next hour or so just going over the basics again. As I mentioned before I hit record, I haven't done this workshop in something since like May 2023. And it's good to be able to do it again because there has been quite significant changes that have gone on since that time. Many cases, Audacity, which is the main program that we use, has gone through a bit of a facelift. It was sold to another company in 2022, and part of their promise was that they were going to be regularly updating Audacity and bringing in a whole lot of new features. And they've kept that promise, which is great, particularly from the user end, given that it's continued to be free. But it's a nightmare for people like me that run training on it because they keep changing the look and feel of it. And that means that there's constant revision that has to go around that. The other thing that, of course, has become more prevalent over the past 12 months, if not more, is more AI that's coming out there. And really what I wanted to do with this presentation, apart from remind people of the basics, is to do a bit more of a high level presentation so that depending on whatever way you wish to work, we can kind of present that a bit here. For those people that do like detail, I will be chunking down into my slim area of expertise, the way that I do things in order to show you how I personally do it. Hello, puppy in the background there. But also at the same time, I want to keep it a bit more high level than what I have done traditionally in the past, so that it hopefully generates ideas above and beyond how you might have done things previously. As I mentioned, I do have some presentation notes here in front of me. There's a few reasons for that. I mentioned before, I am flying solo. So if people come into the room now, I have to manually let them in, or if people ask questions, I have to kind of pause and do that. And with that, these notes have got reminders on here for me to pause and shut up and allow questions to be asked so I don't actually forget. I know some people have asked for this presentation to happen simply because they want to know something like how to put background music on a recording or something on those lines. But I'm hoping that by going through these basics again and covering a few points again, you might learn something new again. You might find something else of interest in this, particularly since I will touch on things like AI. I don't want to spend too much time on it because that could be a whole separate training in itself. And I feel that there are other people out there who perhaps do it better. But I will touch on it as we go through that. I always start this presentation. Oh, actually, I've got a PDF to share, haven't I? I completely forgot about that. I was starting to get all rambly, and then I realized I have a PDF that I can use here as well. So, there's the first slide, and the crowd erupts in applause. Fantastic. Okay. Oops, is it going to let me go through? There we go. So, what I'll cover today is very much the same as the traditional version of this webinar, where we'll talk about why I should learn hypnosis audio recordings, the what, where, when, how, the easiest way to make hypnosis recordings. I've got here how to do your first recording, but I know some of you have already done that. So in many ways, it's just a refresher on those recording basics to get the best quality performance. How to edit out your mistakes, how to clean up your recording, how to add background music, how to export it. And as I mentioned, we'll also be looking at AI. So who am I? This slide feels almost redundant with this group of people. You guys know who I am. But as a bit of a refresher, my background was in the music industry and the creative industry. I've had my own business, Release Hypnosis, since 2015, and another one, Hypnotherapy HQ, with my business partner, Joey Buzzardle, since 2016. I previously presented at conferences like Hypno Summit and Hypno Biz. I've got a podcast or two that's loitering around there that if you haven't had a chance to listen to, I recommend it if I don't mind saying so myself. I hopefully will get back to the podcast sometime this year. They're kind of fallen by the wayside, but they're actually a lot of fun to do. So I wouldn't mind getting back into them. Why learn to record? Let's again just cover the real basics here. Obviously, it's a great passive revenue stream, um, particularly in these tough economic times. It's great to be able to have a service offering to people across multiple levels, whether it's going to be anything from a full package based around a particular program, individual sessions, all the way down to selling hypnosis audio recordings that could be the gateway for them to discovering hypnosis more. It's also helping you to be able to reach more people, to be able to get out there in a global market nowadays. It's going to be able to help you to build programs and trainings that can help fellow hypnotherapists or coaches or mindfulness experts, as well as the various different people out there that could benefit from it. It's far more cost efficient than going into a studio and engaging others to do it. And I dare say it's a lot more fun doing it yourself as well. Sure, it might be convenient to be able to go into a studio and stand behind a microphone and do your thing, but then you're also hoping that you're feeling it that day as well. And if you're not feeling it that day, you could be spending a lot of money just to go in there and have an experience. Learning how to record is great for being able to create lead magnets that will attract more clients to you. As I mentioned before, I've got a podcast, and these skills can be really useful towards that. And it's also useful as a giveaway. I always recommend this. I hope it's the next slide. It is. I always recommend this. If there's one thing I always recommend to anyone when they learn the skill, is to create a short hypnosis audio recording that you could potentially offer anyone who books a session with you. You can send it out as part of your confirmation when they book as a downloadable link. And you would encourage them before they come in to listen to that hypnosis audio. And there's a few benefits that come from that. The first is, of course, that they perceive you as offering fantastic value because you're giving them something before they even come in and see you. They're going to think, this is amazing. I haven't even been in yet. And my hypnotic experience, my hypnotic journey is starting now. It also means that they're getting used to experiencing hypnotic phenomena. We want them to be able to have a feeling of that before they come in, because in many cases, they might be feeling a little bit anxious or worried about what this might feel like. And if they can experience it from the comfort of their home beforehand, that's going to be an advantage. And of course, the third advantage there is that it's going to be experiencing hypnotic phenomena to the sound of your voice, which is great. It's kind of preconditioning them to having that hypnotic experience with you before they even get in the room. Then when they get in the room, there's added value there because you can sit down with them and you can ask them, how did you go with that hypnosis audio that I sent you beforehand? What did you experience there? Now, they're going to give one of a few different responses. The first response, and the one you hoped for, was, you know what, I listened to it and I experienced this incredible hypnotic phenomena. Great. Then you know that whatever you are going to do, you can use what you did in hypnosis audio to be able to work with that client. It's great feedback. The second thing they might say is, yeah, I'm not quite sure what I felt. And so you can get a sense that there's a bit of uncertainty there, and in which case you probably would want to go back to the pre-talk or to at least explore with them what it is that is the concern for them. So again, that's really valuable feedback. The third thing they might say to you is, I didn't listen to it. And at that point, you can ask why or explore why. And it might be because there was a fear associated to it, which again means going back to the pre-talk. Or they might say something like, I didn't have any time, in which case you might be getting feedback about what they might be with homework afterwards. They might be really time poor. And so this kind of feedback can be really useful in setting up your own session, getting an indication about how this particular client might engage with any of the work that they might be required to do between sessions, or how likely they are to do it, or even their level of commitment as well. So I think you can see, even just from this, that 1 10-minute audio recording could have some incredible value in helping to improve the quality of the sessions that you have and the feedback that you get at the very start as well. Does anyone else do that at the moment? Is that anything that anyone does? You do, Fiona. And do you find that it benefits your sessions as well?
Yes, particularly if someone coming to me and they've never had hypnosis or they're very, very anxious.
Mm,
Um, just recently had a client who really extreme anxiety, not sleeping. So I sent him one of my recordings, which is an insomnia one.
mhm,
So I'd spoken to him on Friday. He came to me on Tuesday. So from the Friday night, he'd been listening to it every night, and he said it had, you know, really helped him sleep. Apart from the night before he came for this session, because I think he was anxious about coming and
mm.
never done any kind of personal development work at all. So yeah, I don't always do it, but actually I think what you're saying, doing maybe a short one would be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really good idea, thanks.
I think it's a great way to be able to just introduce people to it. The other thing I would recommend as well is that record a separate introduction that is a pre-talk, so you can provide both files. The benefit of doing it as a separate introduction means that you don't have to keep re-recording it or sticking it at the start of your other one. You can send it as a separate file with a listen to this first tag on it. And in that, you can do a positive pre-talk explaining to people that, you know, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. You follow my instructions to the best of your ability. Wonderful things can happen. All those sorts of things that you would include in the pre-talk. Um, the other thing to keep in mind is that when you are recording your hypnosis giveaway, make sure you say at the start of it who you are and where you're from. Because chances are that if someone really likes that recording, they're going to give it to their friends. And you might as well benefit then from a bit of that free exposure of people passing it around. So you might start the recording session by saying something like, you know, hi, Lawrence from Release Hypnosis. I'm sure that you're going to get incredible value from listening to this hypnosis audio. Allow yourself to be able to find a place where you can relax, where you're unlikely to be interrupted, where you can close your eyes and go into this experience now. And something like that can just help to be able to um, make sure that if that recording is passed around, that people know who you are and how to get in touch with you, particularly if they like the sound of your voice as well. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm attracted to certain voices, and people might hear that recording and go, I like the feeling of this person. I'm going to go to them. I always show this slide because I think it's absolutely fascinating. I'm sure many of you are aware of the UK company Uncommon Knowledge. They have a whole range of hypnosis downloads. This is a few years old now. I think this might have been 2017, but at the end of the year, they shared with everyone what their top downloads were for the year. And I thought this was fascinating. Number one was generalized anxiety treatment. But you can see there's things like overcoming fear and anxiety, exercise motivation, sugar addiction, believe in yourself, stop thinking about someone. Clearly, a lot of unrequited love went on in 2017. Improve concentration and focus, drink less wine. I predicted that one probably went up the charts after the pandemic. Weight loss hypnosis, that one would have as well. Overcoming procrastination, fall asleep fast, quit smoking, get over a relationship, unrequited love, go back to sleep, insecurities in relationships. There's some common themes that are coming up there, but there's also some themes that if you had said to me, what do I think the top 20 hypnosis audio topics would be? I probably wouldn't have picked some of those. And I think it highlights again that if you are a specialist in a certain niche area, then creating some hypnosis audio recordings that speak to your niche is going to be something really valuable. Even the other day, I work a lot in the creative industry with graphic designers and visual designers. And a common problem that occurs within that community is imposter syndrome, because for them, their worth, their value comes from fresh conceptual ideas, which may not always happen. And so there is frequently a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of anxiety that's within that community because of that. And the other day I was thinking I should really sit down and record some recordings that are aimed at design studios that I can go to and say, would your team like these recordings? You know, a 10-minute mindful break to help them to reconnect with their creativity and to be able to let go of, you know, what they've just experienced that morning or something. So certainly have a think about the areas that you work in and how you might be able to come up with some particular topics that could be of absolute value there for you as well. Do they work? Big question. As I've got there, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. Now, have any of you ever gone to an online group hypnosis session? I'm sure many of you have at some point. And you might have gone through that group hypnosis session and had a wonderful experience from it. Now, my question would be, if that group hypnosis session had been recorded and someone was watching the replay back, is the fact that they're watching a recording of it going to lessen the potential impact that that hypnosis session has? I would argue it wouldn't. It's not like the art of hitting the record button has stripped the words of magic. It's simply how you engage with it. There is a fantastic hypnotherapist in the UK, a guy named Carl Smith. I adore Carl. He's great. His techniques are really good. I know Fran here is also a fan of Carl. But there was one time where he was talking on one of his lives, and he was saying that he didn't believe hypnosis audio recordings worked because he had recorded some and left the middle of them blank, intentionally not put anything in, and gave it to people. And people afterwards were telling him that the recordings were fantastic. They really helped him. And I ended up appearing on his live podcast shortly afterwards, and I brought that up. And I said, well, what you're doing is creating a recording that is generating positive expectancy for a start. And we know that anything that assumes trance causes trance. If they go into listening to that recording, believing that this recording is going to do something meaningful, transformative, and powerful for them, then chances are they're likely to have that experience. And so it doesn't matter if there's a bit in the middle where it's quiet and they're potentially doing their own internal work, or if there is a voice guiding them through a process. I personally believe that recordings have the ability to be able to really help begin to make the shifts that may need one-on-one or something afterwards, but are going to be able to help that process for some people. So definitely, I believe they work. Right. Step by step. So I mentioned at the start of this that I'm aiming for this webinar to be more high level. And with that, I've kind of got these 5 points here. The first point being the script or the content, whatever we wish to talk about. The second being the voice. The third being editing that voice. The fourth will be polishing that recording. And the fifth will be adding music to it. Now, before I go into that first bit about the script, has anyone got any questions? Because I'm aware that I'm just kind of sitting here and rambling on. The red cordial is kicking in, folks. Is there any questions at all as I take a sip of the red cordial? Nope. Okie dokie. Okay. Either you're engaged or you've slipped into a coma. Either way, I'm going to continue. So let's talk about the script. And I usually don't include this in this particular webinar, but I think it is a good place to start. And the reason why, and some of you may experience this, I know some of you have gone through my training, is that one thing I notice from some people when they go through my training, because I'm getting them to go back to basics with their recording, quite often they find themselves hitting almost a procrastination when they write a script. It's almost like they question if their script is good enough or not, or it kind of becomes a blocking point for them about, well, okay, I don't have a script yet that I'm really happy to use. And so this really should be the starting point. What is it that you're hoping to record? Who is the target audience? What are you hoping for? Now, I've got here as the first point, the script is, of course, entirely optional. What I mean by that is this. Some of you will know the wonderful Emma Romano. Back when there were bushfires a few years back, we were trying to set up an online repository of different recordings that people can have for free. And Emma volunteered to do a recording. I said I would offer to record it for her. And so she came into my clinic room on St Kilda Road, and she booked she got her car in a 1 hour zone. And unfortunately, we get along really well. So the first 45 minutes of her stay was us just talking about stuff until we got 45 minutes in, realized the time, and went, oh crap, we really should do a recording after all. And what she ended up doing, I can actually show you, is actually online. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see there is Emma Romano's Children's Relaxation Meditation. Now, that recording you can see is 12 minutes and 25 seconds. She did that in one take. She literally sat behind the microphone, no script, nothing. We hit record. She just did it. What was wonderful about what she did was that she was really bringing in a whole lot of very vivid imagery around flying and lakes and all that sort of thing. So if you listen to that recording, you'll hear that I put some soundscapes in there. So when they're talking about flying, there's a sound of wings flapping. When she's talking about water, there's a lake running. And that was really fun to have that kind of auditory storytelling going on in the background to complement what she did there. So it's not absolutely necessary to have a script ready to go. If you feel comfortable getting behind a microphone and just going free form, then great, by all means do it. It can sometimes be fun to allow yourself to go into your own hypnotic state and just free form in the moment. I think most of us do that when we're seeing clients, that we kind of slip into that experience. And I don't know about you, sometimes I surprise myself by what falls out of my mouth at that time. And sometimes I think, damn, I wish I was recording that. That would have been really useful to repurpose at some time. If you're not comfortable with just free forming and you want to be able to do scripts, there's a few things you can do. If you go on YouTube, for instance, and find that there's a particular recording that you like, and perhaps they have certain pattern that you're really drawn to, or it's done in a certain way, you can go to something like this website here, which is a free YouTube transcription site. Enter in the URL and it will give you a transcription of that recording right there. One thing I will add for those who are curious, any of the URLs that I mentioned in this webinar, I will make sure I send to you as well. So you don't have to go chasing them up afterwards. Anything I mentioned here and show you, I'll send a link to you afterwards as well. But this could be really good. You can then click copy entire transcription and you can then copy and paste that into a Word doc if you want, and you can base whatever you're wanting to work based off that if you would like. Of course, we can't talk about script generation or script content nowadays without talking about AI and our new old best friend, ChatGPT. How many of you guys have played with ChatGPT so far or feeling comfortable? I know you have Fran, Fee, you have as well. ChatGPT can be really useful for being able to help create a draft of something. Now, I have preloaded a couple of examples here simply because I felt it would be quicker for me to do this. This particular prompt here is one that I took from Shane Fozzard, giving him full credit. I asked Shane today if I could share this, and he said, go for it. So I've got his permission. I will also include, for those interested, information and links to his AI training for those that might be interested as well. If you don't know what ChatGPT is, you might be wondering what a prompt is. So within the AI world, a prompt is just essentially a command or a request that you put into ChatGPT. And the command or the request, ChatGPT is kind of designed to be able to talk to it almost like you're talking to a friend. It's built on a human language model. But in this particular prompt, what we're asking ChatGPT to do is to act as an expert ghostwriter, assessing the tone, style, voice, personality, perplexiness, and bustiness used in the following sample content so you can mimic this. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm going to give it a script and ask it to come up with a prompt that will then replicate that writing style of the script, which is pretty exciting and mind-blowing when you think about it. You can take anyone's work and kind of go, right, I want ChatGPT now to break this down and show me how this is analyzed at a level of terms of speech and mimicking. So the script I've used here is actually one from Uncommon Knowledge, which I didn't get permission for. So sorry to Uncommon Knowledge. Please don't sue me. I love you. And when I put it through ChatGPT, it was able to tell me the tone, the style, the voice, the personality, the perplexity. See, it's those words that are going to stuff me up at the end of the day. Words like perplexity and the burstiness. And it then came up with this prompt here. So I can now use that prompt to be able to generate a similar style of script. And I did that. I took that prompt and I asked it, I said, your task is to craft a 2,000-word hypnosis script that can be used to help someone with releasing and letting go of anxiety. And then I copied and pasted in that exact same prompt. And this is what it gave me. And I'm not going to sit here and necessarily read it. But again, I mentioned before that this is a starting point. It's a draft. And you can take it and you might find that there's things here you really don't like about it. But then you might find there's some things here that it comes up with that you think, hey, that's really good. And again, it's just a good starting point that you can do. And it came up with a fairly comprehensive script that I can use there. So I don't know about you, but I think that's fairly amazing. The other thing is that Shane has recently come up with a personal writing fingerprint creator that, again, you can put in some written content and it will come up with an analysis of that writing style so you can replicate it. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. And this is probably a good point for me to stop and ask, is there any questions about anything I've shown so far? Yeah, go for it. You don't even need to put up your hand. We're friends here. Go for it, Fiona.
Sorry. No, so you made me think I was talking in class again. That's what.
I have that effect on people. I'm very teachable.
I don't really, I've never dabbled in the whole AI stuff. So are these programs free programs, or is it something that is a monthly subscription, or what?
The answer is both. So ChatGPT has a free version and it also has a paid version. Now, you're probably wondering what the difference is.
Yeah,
So
please.
the paid version, essentially, they have what they refer to as language models. And the language model in the paid version is far greater and far more complex and capable of doing far more detailed kind of work than the free version. Having said that, the free version should still have enough in it to be able to provide real value to you if you're looking to explore it. So, given it's free, given it's free, it's a bit like Audacity. There's no reason why you can't really just play with it. And if you don't like it, then it doesn't really matter. But you might find that it can be really useful just in terms of brainstorming ideas and coming up with, perhaps different ways of doing things. I know with ChatGPT, you can ask it to talk to you in a meta model, for instance, and practice those sorts of things. So it is interesting where it's going. The other thing I want to say about AI is that we're 18 months in from it kind of becoming a bit more mainstream. And in that time, it has gone in leaps and bounds. So while it's still not absolutely perfect with some things, we're probably not far off from it being really perfect, I think, is a way to kind of frame that. So yeah, definitely an exciting time in terms of technology, both scary and frightening in equal measures, I would guess.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are there any other questions at all before I move on? Nope. Awesome. Okay. We've done that. On to the voice. Not the TV show either. I'm not going to start swiveling around in my chair or anything like that. I did mention before that, you know, this particular presentation, I'm wanting to be more high level. And this is a good example of that, because while I will show you how I record, there are obviously lots of different ways in which you can record your voice. So, for instance, you could simply use your trusty old smartphone and hit record on that, particularly if, you know, I don't know what the Android is like, but on iPhone, I can record on here and then airdrop it to my Mac very easily. The only problem I would say with recording on your phone is that if you bring the microphone too close to your mouth, what do you think might happen? You're likely to have probably distortion from your air hitting the microphone. You're also likely, if you're having to hold it for about 20 or so minutes, to hear the sound of you holding it and moving it around. So it may not be necessarily the most convenient. You could potentially attach something like a lapel mic to your phone and then record it directly onto the phone and do it that way. That's also a possible way of doing it. But, you know, for some people that might work, that might not. You could use a platform like Zoom. I know a lot of people who simply record onto Zoom. And Zoom also has a really good noise reduction on it as well. I don't know if I have my noise reduction on at the moment. I should actually check that before I start doing recording. Actually, it's an easy way for me to tell. Can you guys hear me clap? No? Okay, so noise reduction's on. Right. And that's also part of the thing. You know, when we talk about recording, sometimes a clap is going to be needed. And if the noise reduction is turned on, it's going to make it a lot harder for you to be able to edit your recording afterwards. So either way, these are the pros and cons that come up. You could use something like the Script. Now, if you don't know what the Script is, this is a paid platform. It's an app. It's something that allows you to record directly into it, both audio and video. It has really good noise reduction features on it. The way you edit your video and audio is that it prints up a transcription and you edit the transcription, which is exciting in itself. It can remove ums and ahs, and it also has the ability to learn and replicate your voice. So where that might be useful is that if you have a day where you just don't feel like recording hypnosis audio, but you've trained it on your voice, you can enter a script and just let it pretend to be you. Which is, again, in terms of AI advancement, that's incredible, isn't it? Both scary and incredible to think that we have this technology now that has the potential to be able to learn your voice and do it. Which leads to the next one there, using AI to voice or replicate your voice. Now, one particular site that is generally quite good for this is, I'm just jumping across, is one called, I'm just waiting for that. Actually, I'm going to bring that down a second. That's better. There we go. This is called 11 Labs. Now, 11 Labs, its sole function is to create voices. You can see here that the voice I've chosen is their Matthew voice, which is calm and peaceful. But if you get an 11 Labs subscription, you can actually train it on your voice as well, so it can replicate you. And from the reviews I've read on the various different voice replications out there, this is probably the one that people recommend the best. The problem I have had with 11 Labs to date is that if I was to just enter in a script and use the voice, I personally find it a bit too fast. And I'll show you what I mean. Have a listen to this.
Welcome to this moment of tranquility, a time dedicated solely to you and your inner peace. As we embark on this journey together, I invite you to find a comfortable position, whether sitting or lying down, in a space where you feel safe and undisturbed.
So the voice itself isn't bad, perhaps a little monotone. but I find it awfully fast. Coming back to what I just said before, AI is advancing at a very rapid pace. I don't think it will be long before we get to the point where speed can be adjusted. And I did notice just the other day that they have this speech-to-speech button now, which is create speech by combining the style and content of an audio file you upload with the voice of your choice. So it sounds like what they're aiming for is that if I was to record me doing hypnosis audio, then upload that, whatever voice I choose next will replicate the speed and tone of what I've just done. So that's exciting. There's lots of big things happening in that space. So if you're feeling like having a fun afternoon of AI exploration, add 11 labs to the list along with ChatGPT there as well. I did mention the script before as well. This is the script website here. Again, just a really fascinating, interesting tool. The only thing I'd say about this is that it does have a monthly subscription, which if I look at the pricing here, let's have a look. So $12 per month, if we go monthly, sorry, $15 per month US, will get you 10 hours a month, 4K video resolution, removes ums and ahs. You have 1,000 word vocabulary. AI eye contact. That's the other interesting thing it does, is that if you're creating videos, you can have it so that if you look away, it will have AI eyes that continue to look straight at the camera for you. How creepy is that? It's fascinating and it's brilliant where this is going, but oh, okay. So there's some of the options outside of what I've taught previously that you can consider in terms of creating a voice. It doesn't have to necessarily be your voice, or it could be your phone or whatever you use. It can be an AI voice, which is happening more and more nowadays as well. But of course, the one that I always recommend is Audacity, which I know all of you have had some experience with previously. So we'll get to that. I will just also remind you again of the importance of having a really good environment to be able to record in. So we jump into the slides again. As important as having the equipment and software is the recording environment. I always say to people that the best place to do it is somewhere where it's quiet, where you're unlikely to be interrupted. I've got a terrible example of this because I am recording from the front of my apartment. I have a horrible, loud street in front of me. I have thin glass, old thin glass windows. I have a ginger, boisterous feline right there who I know is probably going to go into some sort of meowing fit at some point through this. So in terms of a recording environment, I'm not exactly blessed with a great one. And I share that because I want to make sure people don't, again, have reasons to not record. Make do with the best that you have. I think it was you, Fiona, that had the cupboard, wasn't it? That you took the time to... No, it wasn't you. There was someone else who took the time to actually block out one of their cupboards and put up soft furnishings and turn it into a little recording studio. And she couldn't get over the massive difference it made from doing that. So with that, have an environment that has soft furnishings and surfaces, an environment where you're unlikely to have pets interrupt you, like that picture there of my beautiful little Sammy, who's sadly no longer with us, but who used to love to sit in front of my desk and computer while I was trying to work. And as I mentioned before, if you have one large enough, the ideal recording environment is definitely your closet. Simply because if you go into your bathroom, for instance, it's likely to be tiled. I mean, how great is our voice in the shower, right? Who sings in the shower? And it's because we've got those tiles there. And as we sing, the sound is bouncing off those tiles and it's creating this natural reverb that goes on. It makes our voice sound fuller. That's not always a friend when it comes to voice recording, though. So we want to be able to have an environment where there's no reverb happening, where it's kind of what's referred to as a dead room. I don't know if the cat could be seen behind me at all. I could hear the sound behind me of the cat there, being cheeky. Come on, down we go. Rightio. I knew it was bound to happen. As important of all these things is your performance. So using an iPad or a teleprompter to make sure you have your script there is always a good way to make sure that you are not having the sound of paper or anything interrupting your recording as well. I'm conscientious of time, so I'll race through this as quickly as I can. I've been rambling on for far too long. So what do you need? Obviously, you need a computer of some sort. A desktop computer or a laptop is absolutely fine. You need a microphone. The one that's there is this one here. It's a Blue Yeti. It's probably the most popular home microphone. It's a USB microphone. So it means you can simply plug it straight into your computer and it will work straight away. It's also referred to as a large diaphragm condenser microphone. Now, if you were to go into a recording studio, most vocalists would probably record their vocals through a large diaphragm condenser microphone because it picks up all the nice subtle tones that exist in our voice. The problem with that, though, is that it also picks up a lot of background noise as well. So it can be a bit of a challenge there with that. It's the pros and cons. It does get to capture our natural tones, which is great, but there is background noise that goes with it. There are, of course, other options. So you might be able to get something like this headset here with a microphone on it. The challenge there, though, is that it's not USB. Instead, it's got what's referred to as an XLR plug and a headphone jack, which means that I'm going to need some sort of audio interface, which could be something like one of these cheapy mixers that you can get for about $75 online, or the K3 mixer there. I know that anyone who bought Christian Van Day's Hypno mixer a couple of years ago would have one of these. So there's different options there, but if you want something that's just really straightforward, practical, easy to use, robust, going to last you a long time, then the Yeti is the way to go there. Now, I always do this. You guys already know it, but for anyone watching the replay may not, put your hand up, say words beginning with B or P, and you'll notice that there's that expulsion of air that happens. And if it's hitting the microphone directly, it's going to cause what's referred to as plosives, which are little distortions on the recording. So with that, sometimes you might need to consider getting something called a pop filter. This is a pop filter here. You can get them online at eBay for about $10 to $15. You could also make one with a coat hanger and stockings if you wanted. And this sits between your mouth and the microphone so that when that expulsion of air happens, it's broken up by the mesh that exists there. And it just helps to make sure that those plosives don't happen. The other thing you can do, a bit of a cheat, is to make sure that you put your microphone at almost a 45-degree angle so that when you're talking, the air goes past it, but the sound still goes in that way. So that's an easier way to do it. You may want to consider headphones as well, particularly if you're going to be doing mixing of background music and the vocal, because if you don't have the headphones on, sometimes the levels may not seem right, and you'll notice it really when you put headphones on. So even if you have cheaper headphones, it's going to help really in that mixing process. And lastly, of course, is the software, digital audio workstation or audio editor. They're both really useful. Digital audio workstations tend to be more aimed at musicians, whereas audio editors, which is what Audacity falls under, is more so aimed at just the editing of audio. So again, I'm just going to stop. Any questions at all? Because I feel like I'm just rambling again. Nope. Good. Okay. So Audacity, let's jump into that. There we go. Okay, so if you haven't been to look at Audacity in a little while, then you probably notice that it has had a few changes cosmetically. So nowadays, well, actually, let's just go through this. It's probably the best way to do it. I always recommend that you make sure that your microphone is plugged in before you start Audacity, just to make sure that it can find it. Nowadays, to be able to set your microphone to let Audacity know where to record from, you would go into your audio setup button right there. And if you click on that, you'll see that there's a few different options there. So I can go to recording device and I can select my Blue Snowball microphone right there. And I'm now telling Audacity that it's going to record me via this microphone here. The next thing I want to do is to be able to set my audio level. And to do that, I would go to the microphone. I would click on that and I would enable the silent monitoring. Once I click on that, you'll notice that we have that green VU meter that's jumping up and down, depending on how loudly I speak. And ideally, what we're wanting to do is to get that set somewhere between -6 and -12 decibels. The reason why we want it around that is that if it's below -12 decibels, it might be a bit too quiet, and it's likely that when we increase the volume of my voice, it's going to increase the background noise that's with it. Whereas if it's up around higher than -6, we run the risk of distortion happening as well. We want a little bit of space that we can play with there in terms of adding background music. Now we can see at the moment that it is coming in between -12 and -6, but I'm talking in my normal voice at the moment. What I need to do is to be able to perhaps replicate what I'm going to do in terms of hypnosis. So if I was to move forward a little bit, and if I was to talk in more of a relaxed voice, then I can see that it still looks like it's roughly about right at the moment. Now, you probably noticed that in order for me to do this, I'm having to move closer to the microphone because it's set as high as it can be. If I was too loud, I can click on that and begin to reduce it. And that will reduce the recording level. But if it's set to full, then I'm probably going to need to go closer to the microphone. Ideally, you'd probably want about that much distance between me and the microphone. Alternatively, if you can get perhaps a microphone boom mic and get the microphone off the desk and then closer to your mouth that way, that could potentially work as well. But in this instance, it's easier for me just to be able to lean forward into the microphone. Once I have my level set, I can go back in and disable that. And I know that roughly what I'm going to need to do is move into here in order to do this recording. Any questions before I move on? Nope. Great. Okay. So in a moment, I'm going to hit record. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay silent for 5 seconds. Actually, one thing I'm going to do just quickly in order to demonstrate this is to go into my audio settings on Zoom. And I'm going to turn off the background noise. And I'm just going to check that. If I clap now, can you hear it? Great. Excellent. So in a moment, I'm going to hit record. I'm going to have 5 seconds of silence, which we'll use for the noise reduction afterwards. And for those that have seen this demonstration before, of course, I'm going to do some form of just random talking, but I'm going to intentionally make mistakes so I can highlight editing and everything afterwards. So when I'm ready, I'll hit record. 5 seconds of silence then. Begin by just closing those eyes, taking a deep breath. As you breathe out, allow each muscle to just relax and let go. Taking another deep breath. And as you breathe out, and as you breathe out, just allow each muscle to relax and let go. I wonder if you can imagine if relaxation was a color. What color would it be? And just and as you imagine that, just imagine breathing in that color. Imagine that color going to every muscle, every tendon, every cell of that body. Now I realize as I was doing that, I forgot to explain something beforehand. So either I'm going to just leave it this way or I'll cleverly edit it for the replay. But inevitably, when you do a hypnosis audio recording, there is going to be, at some point, mistakes made. I don't know about you, but I trip over my words all the time. And so what I tend to recommend you do if you are going to make a mistake is to pause, clap, pause, and then start at the start of the previous sentence you were just saying. Now, of course, if you cough, you don't have to clap because that's just making too loud noises. It's really about making a loud noise. And the reason for that is because if I just use the fit to width here, whenever I make a loud noise, it creates this pattern in the waveform. And really what I'm looking for is something to mark and identify when I've made a mistake. And this is the easiest way to do it. So I can see looking at this waveform that there's a mistake that happened there and a mistake that happened right there. Now, of course, if I was using Zoom and I had my noise reduction on, which I will turn it back on now, then it won't record the clap. So just be mindful of that. What you would probably need to do in that instance is to have a really extended silence break and look for them in it. Ultimately, what we're aiming to do is to create a visual marker within the recording to make it easier, because this recording was only a minute and 10 seconds or something. Imagine if you've just done a 30-minute or 60-minute recording and you didn't have marking in it, but you knew you made mistakes. You would have to sit there and listen to the whole thing again in order just to find those mistakes. Whereas by doing it this way, you're making it really easy to see where those mistakes are. So in this instance, I can see there's a mistake here. If I play this back, is anyone wearing headphones? No. Good. Okay. Just make sure I don't blow people's eardrums out. If I play this back, taking another deep breath. And as you breathe out, and as you breathe out, just allow each muscle to relax. So because we're pausing and going back to the start of the previous sentence, it makes it so much easier for us to be able to edit this now. I know that if I highlight from the start of that and select into the end of that, I'm going to just need to delete that portion of the recording. So that's all I need to do. I can click down at the start of the mistake. Holding the mouse down, I can drag it across to highlight and select the part of the recording that I want to delete. And then I can just simply hit delete on the keyboard. And that's now gone. And I can do the same thing over here as well. I can make sure that, and just, and as you imagine that, great. So I can highlight the start, holding it down, drag across, and then delete. And that's now created a recording which has no mistakes in it. Quick and easy. Now, one thing that I would generally do as I'm doing recordings is to save my work as I go. And so I'm going to do that now. I'll show you how I would save this recording. So I'd go into File and Export Audio. And then I can choose a destination, and give it a name, such as raw recording. I can choose if I'm going to do MP3 or WAV. I would tend to go MP3. That is a compressed file format, but still a good sound recording. I'd keep those settings the same and I'd hit export. And it's now exported that file for me to my desktop or wherever I want to go. And there's a reason for that, because what I'd normally do now is to go through the process of noise reduction and all that sort of thing. However, I want to show you something else. I want to show you how AI can help you with this nowadays. Because if I go back over to the web, I've got so many windows open. Here we go. This was the one here. There is now a free online enhancer from Adobe, which you can find at podcast.adobe.com/enhance. And this will clean up your audio for free. It will allow you to do 30 minutes maximum of 1 hour total daily limit. So if I was to choose my file and add that in, with AI nowadays, of course, like, I mean, you might as well take advantage of some of these features that exist out there. But I'll let it do it, because what I'd like to do is perhaps show you what it comes up with as well. Oh, it's not going to take 10 minutes to enhance. It was a 1-minute file. Come on, Adobe, you can do better than that. This is almost one of those moments where we feel like we should have intermission or a bathroom break or something on those lines. I didn't realize it was going to take this long. I tell you what, while it's doing that in the background.
Lawrence?
Yeah.
When it's an MP3 file, it's easier to email. Is that correct?
Correct. It's a smaller file size. So what MP3 essentially is referred to as a lossy file. So when we talk about WAV files or WAV files, some people might call it, whenever I say WAV, I think I sound like Elmer Fudd. So I prefer to say WAV. Chasing WAV files, they are larger because they are lossless. They retain all of the different frequencies and everything within it. Whereas what MP3 does is strip away the frequencies that the human ear can't hear and reduce the file size down. It was actually created for motion picture creation originally, but it's just become a common file format nowadays. Oh, actually, you know what? I was about to jump back, but if I come across to here, let's actually finish that particular recording now, so I can download that. And I'm just going to put that there. Great. And I'm just going to quickly just upload that into Audacity. Sorry, guys. Where is it? Okay. So what is interesting is that it changes it to a mono track instead of a stereo. That's not a big problem because most vocal recordings are mono anyway. But if I look at the background noise on this recording, I'm just going to solo that. Oh, sorry, mute that. If I look at the background noise on this, I can see that it's coming in at around -36 decibels. And if I choose the same file here and play that back, actually it's coming in about the same. So that's really disappointing. It was, when I tried this the other day, it was fantastic. Let's have a look. So what I'll do is I'm going to mute that for a moment. We'll come back to it. I'll see how I clean up this one and if I can get better than AI. So we're talking before about noise reduction. And essentially, whenever you do any form of recording, there is going to be some form of background noise that ends up on your track. It's almost unavoidable. And so what noise reduction is about how do you remove all of those consistent hisses and hums and those sorts of electronic noises that exist. So as I mentioned before, if I look at this particular track, I can see that the background noise is coming in at around -36. What I can do is go, I've already got the selection there highlighted, but go into Effect, choose Noise Reduction. This is a two-step process. So the first step is that I want to be able to tell Audacity, here's an example of the background noise that I want you to remove. And we do that by simply having that selection there, bringing up the effect and clicking this button that says Get Noise Profile. When I click on that, I've now said to Audacity, here you go. This selection here is an example of the background noise that I want you to get rid of. Now what I can do is double click within that wave to highlight the entire wave and go back into the effect, choose noise reduction. I'm generally going to keep the settings the same, whatever it brings up. Even Audacity itself says that any of these plugins are going to have a try and see nature about them. And the metaphor I gave Anthony in the Facebook group the other week was this. When you have a client that comes and sees you, they might begin to talk to you about whatever it is they're looking to change. And you might have an idea of the various different techniques that you might apply to that particular problem. But you're probably going to tweak those techniques as you go based upon what they're telling you, aren't you? And it's a similar sort of thing here, is that each recording is going to be different because your voice is unique. The environment that you're in is unique. The microphone you're using is going to be unique. That whole combination is going to be unique to you. So there's not ever going to be a one-size-fits-all technical approach to this. There's always going to be a little bit of a try and see, a curiosity and experimentation. So I would always start with whatever the preset settings are and then just play around with them a bit to see what you can get. But in this instance, I'm going to hit that OK button to apply that noise reduction. And if I do a selection of the start now and hit play, we can see that that noise is being reduced down to about -54 decibels, which is pretty good. The next thing that I will do is to increase the volume of my voice. And I can do that by going into Effect and use the Normalize. Now, Normalize has the ability to be able to increase the volume or decrease it down. So for instance, if I was wanting to do something that was more subliminal, I can reduce it to like -30 decibels to have it just be almost a whisper in the background. Or I can say to bring it up to -1, and you can see by doing that, it's made it louder straight away. Generally, whenever I'm doing a audio recording, the two effects that I will always apply is going to be a noise reduction and a normalize. I may play with some of the other effects, and there's certainly lots of different effects that you can choose from that come built into Audacity. But the two standard ones that I will use without fail are noise reduction and normalize to get things sounding cleaner and louder. Basically, are the two functions that exist there. Has anyone got any questions for me at this point? Yep, go for it.
Thanks. It was just a bit further back. So I've noticed in the past, this is one I've struggled with. If I say I'm doing a recording and it's going to be maybe, I know it's going to be quite long, and something happens, I think, oh, do you know what, I'm going to just leave it for today. So if you want to save in Audacity a partly recorded piece of work, how do you do that? So you're not exporting it, you want to keep it in there to come back later on. How do we do that?
Great. So good question. What you would do is go into File and Save Project.
Okay.
And then when you save the project, what it will effectively do is save all the elements that are there and create a project file. We'll generally create a folder with all the bits in it and a file itself. So when you click on that file, it will bring up all those different elements. What I will say, though, is that if you are halfway through recording and interrupted and go off, just be aware that when you do start to do the next part of the recording, people may notice a difference because it's a different day. You might have a slightly raspier voice. There might be a thunderstorm going on outside. There could be a whole lot of different factors that might make it a little bit harder to have that consistency going through. Hopefully it will be so minute that they won't notice. Most people won't, but just be aware that that might happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Great. So I'm just making sure I'm checking my notes that I'm covering here. Yep. Excellent. So let's talk about adding music. The easiest way to add music is to drop and drag the file into Audacity. So you can literally go to your file in whatever folder it's in, click on it, drag it across into Audacity, and it should open up. The other option would be to go into File, and then under Import, you can do Import Audio, and then lead whatever the directory is, or lead it to whatever directory your music is in, and click on the file, and it will open it that way. For the moment, I'm just going to drag and drop this file in. And it's just reading that. This might be a great time for me to do a shout out to the lovely people at Silencio Music. They do some great recordings. They've always been really kind to me, particularly offering discounts to any people that do my training. And I just think they do some great recordings. So you can see that I've added this recording in here, with background music in here, and it's about 30 minutes long. And given that my recording is 1 minute long, you can see there's a bit of a discrepancy there. So what I'm going to do, just to start off with, to make it easy to work with, is to highlight from the 4 minute mark onwards. And I'm just going to delete that. And I'm going to go into View, Track Size, Fit to Width, so that I can now see both the files quite clearly. Now, of course, I could just hit play and see what it sounds like. Let's just do that. Whoops. Begin by just closing those eyes, taking a deep breath. As you breathe out, allow each muscle to just relax and let go. So I think some of you have been through my training, so you know the questions I usually ask here. What would you change here? What would be what you'd want to do? Go for it, Fran.
Well, I've got two things, but it's really optional whether you start the music first or the voice first.
Yeah, great.
At the same time, it depends on the mood.
It's all subjective. It's all just personal opinion.
Can you talk a little bit about de-essing?
De-essing, goodness. Okay. I will talk a little bit about de-essing. Wasn't what I was planning to go into today, but yeah. So de-essing is essentially, sometimes when we talk, we have a ringing that happens, which is referred to as sibilance, and it tends to occur around S words. Now, there are plugins that can help with de-essing. I probably won't show them in this particular training today, Fran, but I can perhaps show you next time we do catch up, because there are some plugins that are available and some are free, and there's some excellent options there. I find that with de-essing, some people's voices work well with the plugins and some don't as well. So, but yeah, essentially we're talking about sibilance there. But I will come back to you on that one. Does anyone else have any thoughts here?
The volume of the music, turn it down.
You reckon turn the music volume down?
Sorry. That was like telling you what to do.
No, you can do that. It's fine.
Yeah,
Like, Lawrence, dance.
Lawrence, yes, do. Probably just have the voice louder than the music, even if it is for the first part of it.
I thought actually that the music was quieter, to be honest, but that's
Oh, I
interesting
felt
you
like it was
say that.
loud.
Yeah, and this is where I was saying before about mixing with headphones, because normally I'd mix with headphones, given that the majority of people that are going to be listening to my recordings are going to be listening to it through headphones. And what I found in the past is that sometimes when I've mixed those levels, the background music I thought was set right, and then when I listened to it back, it was too quiet or too loud. I would have thought actually that the background music was either too quiet or about the right volume. But what I would generally do, you are correct, I would generally turn the volume down a little bit. I do think my voice is potentially a bit too loud, so I'm going to turn that down as well. And I'll just show a couple of different things, because Fran is right. My personal preference is to let the music start first and then have the voice come in like 15 to 30 seconds later. There's no hard and fast rules about this. Some people might prefer to have the voice start first and then music come in. Some people might like to have the music start and then the voice start, then the music fade away and the binaural beat come in, or something like that. There's no, definitive rules here. If you do decide that you want the music to start first and the voice to come in, at the very top of these waveforms, you can see there's this light gray bar. And when I move my cursor up towards it, it goes from being a cursor into a hand. And if I click down the mouse, you'll notice that the hand clinches in and it grabs that wave. And I can now move that wave to wherever I want it to be. And when it's in the position I want, I can let go of my mouse, hand releases, and off it goes. So this is a move for people who used Audacity a couple of years ago. There would have been time shift, the time shift tool. That's now gone. They've now got this thing called handles instead. So these are the handles. And I actually think it's kind of cool. Makes sense. One thing that it has remained, though, is the envelope tool. So we'll talk about that. If I go up into this button here and click on this, you'll see that there are these blue lines that appear across both waveforms. And these control the volume of the track. And they can be controlled via adding various points in along the timeline and adjusting the volume from there. So if I wanted to create a couple of points on the music track and a couple of points at the end, and I can now take those inner points and drag them in. And it means that when the recording comes to this part, the volume on these is going to dip down and then dip back up again. So if I was to play it at the start here, begin by just closing those eyes, taking a deep breath. As you breathe out, allow each muscle to just relax and let go. Every tendon, every cell of that body. So you can see how by using that envelope tool, it just allows that volume to go down and come back up again. This is referred to as ducking. So it means that whenever there's talking going on, the music will dip down to allow more space for the voice. And then when I'm not talking, the music can come back up again.
That's what I meant by volume, sorry.
Oh, is it?
That's what I was, yeah, but I didn't know that it had a proper name. Yeah.
We got there in the end. It's the main thing.
Yeah.
The other thing you might want to do to your recording, because obviously at the moment I have this cut off right here, which will be quite extreme if you were to listen to it, just become quite silent. So what I can do is to say if I wanted it to finish at 2 minutes 15, I can highlight that and delete. And then I can highlight from the end of my recording or around that, all the way until I see a yellow line come up. There it is. I don't want to go over that yellow line. That yellow line indicates the very edge of that end. And I can go into Effect and choose Fade Out. And that will now create a natural fade out at the end of it, so it doesn't become such a harsh ending. Once I'm happy with it, I can again go back into Export Audio, and I can give it a title, and I can hit Export. You can notice here that it's about, will it export the entire project, multipliers, or current section, selection. So if I hit current selection, the only thing it would export is that there. Whereas if I've got an entire project, it's going to export everything there. So I click OK on that. Oh, one other thing before I do that, you probably notice that a step that's missing that was previously there is metadata. Whereas if I go over here, there's the edit metadata button there. So if I want to enter in all that information about who I am, the recording, that could be found in that button there. And hit export, and off it goes. And then from that point, it's just simply a case of being able to upload it into my Dropbox or Google Drive, or if I have a platform like Bandcamp that I'm selling on, or Shopify or any of those e-commerce platforms, and off I go from there. Any questions for me? Have I sent you all into a coma? I'm concerned. Has that hopefully answered some of the questions some people had previously?
Yeah, thank you. Do you know what? And this has been really helpful, but also to have this Zoom as a recording is so helpful, because in the past, when I've wanted to do a recording, I've had to go through all the different Facebook videos step by step and then find them, start. Whereas just having it all in one go, I can press pause, flick onto my Audacity, right, I'm going to do that bit, and then go back and play you and go, right, do that now. So that's just going to be so helpful. Thank you.
Great, my pleasure. If there are any questions that you have after this, please feel free to reach out to me. I know I'm pretty sure everyone that's here has actually been through my training before, and so therefore you're always entitled to come back to any future trainings within the group. And that's something I'll be working on over the next couple of months. I really want to go back and re-record a lot of this and create a bit more content and upload it to the Voomly platform that I have, simply because the Voomly platform is more a dedicated course platform. I think the quality of the video on there is better and easier for people, and I'll leave the Facebook groups then to be more for announcements, discussions, all that sort of thing. So I'm hoping that over the next little bit, I'll get onto that and create that content. And I'm hoping that will be a far more beneficial way of doing this moving forward. But
I'm sorry, can I just say, obviously it's the first time I've actually spoken to you. It's always been just kind of remote. But really, I really appreciate your generosity and how thoughtful you are, and just your kindness. Honestly, you give so much time, so generous. It's just amazing.
It's really
really appreciate it. Thank you.
I think our industry can be quite technophobic, and if there's something I can do to help encourage people to break through that and to build their businesses so that they can help more people as well, then that's wonderful. But I really do appreciate those words, Fee.
You do a great job, honestly. Really do.
Thank you. I'll let you guys go for evening. It's ended up being an hour and a half, so I'm hoping I've not taken up too much of your evening. But I hope to see all of your faces again sometime soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Take care.
See ya.